fight! No!
Alright, so the Spider-Man live-action battle royale video has been a massive pain. Hopefully though, it should be fine now, so I would appreciate all of you to help me out here by just liking the video. Well, if you just want to get your opinions down in the comments on which Spider-Man would win the battle royale, which Spider-Man is your favorite, what your thoughts are for Brand New Day, it would just help a lot. I appreciate you all, but I swear to God if this video dies again, I'm not going to do this. Spider-Man, one of the most iconic superheroes of all time. So much so that they made not just one or two, but 3 live-action adaptations about this guy. Tobey Maguire playing Spider-Man from the Raimi trilogy, Andrew Garfield playing the Amazing Spider-Man, and the current Spider-Man from the MCU played by Tom Holland. And with Spider-Man Brand New Day coming out in July, I think it's probably the best time to do this video before it gets outdated by Man-Spider or Symbiote Tom Holland or whatever they got planned in this movie. Starting with the basics, we already know which Spider-Man we are using, but which versions exactly? Well, obviously it's their versions in No Way Home, since they're at their best, pretty much, and since Brand New Day isn't out yet for Tom Holland, we can't really use it there, so it just makes sense we're at No Way Home. Which means that any feat and showing from a previous movie would just have them upscale here. However, some feats in previous movies may be set as a cap, since the rogues that the Spider-Man go up against are at the exact same level they were before they were going to die, or stronger due to other factors about said specific character. Really depends on the subtext of what's going on in the movie. Now, with some factors, they can be explained pretty well or equalized to make the fight less unpredictable. For example, we know that Tobey has been Spider-Man the longest and has fought a wider rogues gallery. Andrew has the second longest time as Spider-Man, but Tom has the second wider rogues gallery. However, in No Way Home, they do show comparable intellect and spider sense through their scenes. There's way more of a discussion between these factors, but for simplicity's sake, let's just say that's a tie. Let's cover their specific comparisons on who would win between each other in a 1v1. Since it's Tom's movie and he fought the most rogues from the other two, we could start with him. Unfortunately, with how he compares against the rogues despite the Iron Spider suit that amps his stats, and letting him fight in a higher weight class, it doesn't really get to show it off, since he is beaten in almost every fight and has to require assistance. His first fight was against Doc Ock, and while he was worried at first about civilians in danger, once they're out he fights way more serious to where he brings out the spider arms to do some damage. However, he is taken out pretty easily and even has some of his suit ripped off. A reminder that this Doc Ock is the same one that fought Tobey Spider-Man in the second film, to which not only was he weakened and also worried about a loved one, but actually did better despite holding back, since he has the connection with Octavius while Tom's Peter really didn't. And by the end of the movie he would be at his best, where he was stated that Doc Ock wouldn't stand a chance against him, which would mean an enraged, amped Iron Spider Tom got beaten by a character that wouldn't stand a chance against movie 2 Tobey. Another thing to back it up is both of Tom's battles against Green Goblin. While not in an Iron Spider suit, his hybrid suit he was using in these fights wouldn't be too far weaker, since it's mostly using bits of the Iron Spider suit mixed with his previous Stark suit, and I don't know exactly where that scales, but it should be somewhat comparable to both. However, this doesn't really matter, since an enraged, not pulling punches Tom is just getting laughed at by Goblin just eating his attacks, even without his helmet, where he proceeds to beat his ass and kill his Aunt May. Later on, we get a bloodlust Tom to fight this Green Goblin who got improvements to his arsenal, and Tom still struggled heavily before finally beating him down. So Tom does get stronger as the movie went on, but not so much to really combat the statements or weaken Tobey had in his first movie. And Tobey still got up and proceeded to make Goblin beg to stop hitting him. Sure, this was a ploy for his glider, but he had to rely on this to take out Tobey, and it still didn't. And Tobey gets more powerful as the movies kept going. Tom may have gotten stronger in this movie, but the best we could argue is that he scales to a version of Goblin that may be on par with movie 1 Tobey. From the statements, it's likely to much of a high end, and again he's still lost to Doc Ock in a stronger suit, so he caps out at being movie 2 Tobey victim. Plain and simple. Now, if Tom beats Andrew, there's no real point to yap about him versus Tobey, so let's just do that fight here. While they have less comparability to each other than Tom versus Tobey, the movie still gives us enough to work with, since Tom fights both Andrew's Electro and a lizard. And this may seem a bit repetitive, but Tom doesn't do well here either. Tom fights both villains twice and is helped most of these times. Against Electro, he ends up getting blitzed and needs Sandman to actually hold him off while he pulls off something with the power grid, which will be a constant since a more powered up Electro does knock Tom on his ass in the final fight despite using a stronger suit than the black and gold suit that he was using at the time. Basically, he's consistently below TASM 2 era Electro, since he isn't getting too much stronger at this point and gets a lot stronger way later with the arc reactor. In comparison, TASM 2 Andrew was actually holding his own and tanking his attacks despite Electro draining the electric power grid of New York City and able to keep up with his speeds, which, fun fact, Electro is stated to straight up be moving at the speed of light.
Into a light socket or into an electro socket, like how do you fight somebody who can move at the speed of light? You know, you have to tap into something deeper.
Anyways, we move on to Tom's showings against the Lizard, which he only has 2, and neither of them are that good. The first one was him getting caught off guard and chucked through a building back to where Goblin was beating his ass, and Tom finally struggling to hold Lizard back from attacking his friends and failing to do so, only for them to get saved by a convenient portal. Meanwhile, Lizard catches Andrew off guard and holds him down, to which Andrew responds casually, kicking him up, webbing him, and locking him out of the fight momentarily. I will admit that Andrew was struggling against Lizard in TASM 1, which is why I think this lab scene was sort of reference to their first fight. Andrew straight up does better in the first fight against him than Tom in a stronger suit, regardless. Going back to Electro, all the Spider-Men aren't stronger than him, and Electro does get powerful, like way more powerful as time goes on. However, out of all of them, Andrew does the best, even better than Tobey. Electro was unloading his anger on Andrew in not 1 but 2 periods of time, with he's just torturing him with constant electricity. Mind you, they're all getting knocked back by a single bolt, and Tom was stuck on his ass for a longer period of time from a single bolt of lightning, whilst both Andrew and Tobey were in an electric state, which Andrew still recovers better from. Honestly though, you could argue that Andrew is more used to being hit by electricity and has shown in his movies to improve his gear suits after fighting rogues, which could explain why Tobey was more affected by it. But that doesn't really defend Tom's Stark hybrid suit here, you know, that has own electric weapons and stuff, and you know, as a Stark suit. Really, this is all Tom's durability. In the movie, Tom was at his best, but there isn't much he showed here to really push up his comparisons against Andrew's villains. He just might be comparable to TASM 2 Andrew at best, since we could argue that he just lost the Lizard through experience, despite Andrew having the exact same problems at TASM 1 and doing better, but whatever. So it looks like we will be putting Andrew against Tobey after all. Now you're probably thinking that this is a no-brainer since both of them had a direct encounter where Tobey won, but it's not that simple. In this scene, Andrew does fire first and move up faster, but Tobey gets the first hit off. Now I interpret this scene as Andrew being slightly faster, but Tobey being more precise and showing his experience. Which makes sense since Andrew is younger, more in his prime than Tobey, and dodges Electro's lightning the most, while Tobey is older, has a wider rogues gallery, and has been Spider-Man longer. But it doesn't really show who is physically the strongest out of the two. Luckily, we do have both of them comparing to each other through Tobey fighting Andrew's rogues at the end of the movie. Tobey fights both Electro and Lizard, and it doesn't exactly set anything concrete, but it still might help. All the Spider-Men are weaker than Electro, but again, you can make the argument that Andrew is above Tobey by the reactions to constant electricity, but again, that could easily just be for Andrew's suit and his own preparations against Electro. However, Tobey does do better against Lizard in a worse condition. He was surprised by Lizard randomly appearing and winning his fight, accidentally webbed in the face by Andrew, casually ripping them off, and was still matching Lizard. Oh, and he also casually kicked him in the face after the Spider-Man had a game plan. Because the scene later on where Andrew's defending against the Lizard and casually webbing him up, he wasn't exactly trying to fight Lizard here either. Overall, I do think Tobey does the best and has better showings than Andrew. And considering how much further he upscales from Tom and how much closer Tom and Andrew's scaling is, I'd probably say that Tobey takes it here as well. So to recap, Iron Spider-Man Tom lost to Doc Ock, stated to stand no chance against Spider-Man 2 Tobey at his best. Even being Bloodluster and in a weaker suit, he did do better against an upgraded Goblin, but not so much to close the gap. Andrew did better against Lizard after being chased, while Lizard wasn't really paying attention to Tom and still slammed him. Tobey did the best against Lizard and outright beat Andrew, and finally, they all would scale relative in combat speeds from dodging and reacting to Electro's lightning. Despite having the best tech in most suits and web combinations, Tom's Spider-Man never used it to his fullest capabilities, or at all really in the later movies. And at the end of No Way Home, he gets a new suit anyway without any Stark tech, so he does have spider arms, but they didn't do much against Doc Ock, and he's lacking experience and honestly speed since he does the worst while dodging Electro's lightning. Even his spider sense is the worst. He did send Goblin's change before it really happened, but it's not really as impressive as statuing lightning or seeing the world in slow motion. He's out first, leaving us with Andrew and Tobey, and we do see who gets the first shot in despite the minor speed advantage. So I feel the overall answer is obvious. Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man would likely win the Battle Royale, and it seems a lot of you guys agree with me. And because I know I'm going to get some comments about it, I know Tom's Spider-Man is probably going to get way more way more of a power-up in Brand New Day, because that's clearly what they're showing in the trailers. And it's not like a studio would clickbait us, right? No, but they'll copyright the shit out of you. I don't think this is one of those times. Tom is the weakest of the 3 Spider-Men, but I don't see it lasting that long. I'm not sure about surpassing Tobey, but I do think he might surpass Andrew. Again, if you want to see more Spider-Man related videos in the future, like the video and subscribe.